What is going on, Twintendo Nation? Hope you're having an awesome day. And today I am bringing you another Pokémon Sun Moon video for you guys. Now, as you can see, these are the top 10 changes I think are needed for the Pokemon franchise. Now, you're probably thinking, Twintendo, why the hell are Zinnia and May on the thumbnail? Well, first of all, it was the only good beach image I could find. All the other beach trainers were kind of, I don't know, like low quality. But there's also links between Zinnia and some of the Pokemon on that thumbnail. I'm sure you can guess one of the changes already. Now, before I begin today's video, question of the day to you guys: which changes do you want to see in Pokemon Sun and Moon? Let me know in the comments below. But anyway, let's jump into this top 10 list. And first off, I'm going to go with number 10, which is Pokemon Follow You again, which is why there are Pokemon on the thumbnail, if anyone wondering. So this is something that every Pokemon fan wants. Let's be honest, we all loved it in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Without a doubt, one of the best features in Pokemon Yellow, and as I said, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, was allowing any Pokemon to follow you. Now, I have to be honest, it's unlikely we will see this feature implemented in another Pokemon game. However, it has been almost 6 years since we last had this, so I'm kind of hoping they'll include it. Now, some people have speculated that Pokemon Sun and Moon are going to be similar to Gold and Silver because we'll be going to two regions. One, the new region, and two, people think we will be returning to Kalos because there's a lot that hasn't been explored there. So if they are going to do something like that and it's kind of like a homage to Gold and Silver, I'm hoping Pokemon can follow you, because obviously there's been 5th and 6th gen since we had Pokemon following us, and there probably is going to be a 7th gen, well, that we know there is really. So yeah, that's kind of like 3 generations that haven't followed your trainer, so that would be really cool to see new Pokemon following you and just kind of a new updated look for it. So I hope they include that, but I'm not getting my hopes up for that one because that's just something that every Pokemon fan wants. But anyway, let's move on to number 9, guys, and this is gym rematches. Now, I can't be the only one who thinks gym battles have become more pointless in recent games. I don't mind battling gym leaders once, but that was only when they were difficult. In Generation 6, Pokemon gym leaders were laughably easy, especially Tate and Lisa of the Moss Deep Gym. You could beat both of them with one attack. Now, in Pokemon Emerald, you can rebattle gym leaders with each leader strengthening their team 4 times, which means you get a bit of a challenge if you do want to reverse them. Again, they'll have higher levels and, you know, more Pokemon. And you can also rematch gym leaders in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So if gym leaders are becoming easier, can we at least have the option to battle them again so they're stronger? Because there's just no point of gym leaders anymore. You battle them once, you don't even remember it, to be honest. I can't even remember any of the gym leaders I versed in X and Y because they're done in a minute pretty much. That's how useless they've become. So I think anyone could become a gym leader at this point. So I hope that we can rebattle gym leaders again, because 1, it's super fun, it's good XP, and 2, they actually feel like really tough trainers like they're supposed to. So that's just what I think, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. Anyway, moving on to number 8, I've gone for real Pokemon cries. Now, this might just be my opinion, but I think it's time we have the real Pokemon cries in the game. Don't get me wrong, I really like the current 8-bit cries, but they're really outdated. Plus, I keep thinking I've found the Mewtwo every time I run into a Paris when I'm not looking at my 3DS. Now, we've seen a glimpse of what they could do by giving Pikachu a real cry in Pokemon X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So why not do it with the others? Now, I'm not sure whether the real Pikachu cry in Pokemon X and Y is a hint that they're actually going to include real Pokemon cries in their next game, because normally they do actually hint at a big feature in previous Pokemon games. So for example, in Diamond and Pearl, we had Amity Square in Hearthome City. This allowed some Pokemon to follow you around, and in the next game, which was Heart Gold and Soul Silver, we actually had pretty much every single Pokemon could follow you around. It's like it was a test run, kind of having Amity Square, or just previewing what was going to be in the next game. So we kind of had a preview with Pikachu. It could potentially lead to real Pokemon cries coming into the game. I know there's going to be people who like the 8-bit cries more because, you know, some Pokemon actually really do like their 8-bit cries. So I think there should be an option in the options menu, obviously, that you can toggle between the 2 sets of cries, whether you want it to be 8-bit or real. That's just my opinion, guys. I do think that really needs to be changed because it is a bit outdated. Anyway, let's move on to number 7, and this is additional type balance. Now, the introduction of the fairy type was a welcome inclusion in Pokemon X and Y. It really did help out balancing the typing issues. However, certain types are still lacking a good amount of competitive Pokemon, especially poison types. There are only a handful of decent poison Pokemon, not even really good. So it's about time we have a strong poison Pokemon, maybe even a pseudo-legendary poison Pokemon. And if you don't know what I mean by pseudo-legendary, that's basically Pokemon like Salamence, Garchomp, Metagross, you know, really high stats. I think it's time for a poison Pokemon. So Game Freak, please make this happen. Anyway, moving on to number 6 is one of my biggest problems with X and Y, even though it was one of the best features, which is online lobbies. So the PSS in X and Y was arguably one of the best features. Once connected, you were able to connect with hundreds of players to trade and battle with. However, the most frustrating aspect of this new feature was how difficult it could be to set up a battle or trade. If you were trying to set up a battle with 4 people, but one person declines, you then have to find the other people you've selected in a list of hundreds, and it's just so hard to set up the same battle again. Furthermore, it was really hard to tell which players wanted to battle and which didn't, because you could ask someone to battle and you could be waiting for like half an hour, you're selecting so many people and they just decline you, because obviously they don't want a battle. So that's why I propose that a matchmaking lobby system should be included in future games. So for example, you joined a matchmaking playlist for battling. Then all of the players who appear on your bottom screen will be players who also want to battle because they have selected to go in that battling playlist. Additionally, you can also bring friends from your lobby into matchmaking playlists. So for example, you're at your kind of home lobby. Let's just say you can invite people into a home lobby. You can't really do anything, but then you can select a playlist to go into and it will take all of them with you. This would make it much easier to set up multi-battles, because I think if you have experience like me trying to set up a multi-battle, it can be really frustrating at times. And also, talking about playlists, there will definitely be one for trading obviously, so all the people on the bottom screen will be people who want to trade as well, so that's an option as well. But I think battling was the main problem personally, because I think a lot of people were open to trading. But that's just one of my opinions, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about online lobbies, because although this is number 6, this is definitely one of my main issues I think there was with Pokemon X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. But anyway guys, let's move on to number 5, and this is a portable PC. Now the PC has been around for 20 years, so from Pokemon Red, Blue, Green, Yellow, it's been there since then to X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Yet nothing has really changed. So back then, when Pokemon Red, Blue and Green came out, computers were state-of-the-art technology. Now a lot has changed since then. Mobile phones have much higher specifications than the old PCs had. So why are we still using the same outdated technology? We should be able to access a PC database on the go whilst changing Pokemon in our party when we want. Now the only problem with this is that once Pokemon goes into the PC, it's fully healed. Hypothetically, this means you could put a Pokemon in which has low health and then take it out again and its health is full. Now that would obviously make potions and everything else like that pointless. So to combat this problem, once a Pokemon has been placed in the PC outside of a Pokemon Center, it cannot be withdrawn until you get to the PC at your nearest Pokemon Center. So PCs will still exist in Pokemon Centers, but I still think we should be able to organize our party out on the routes and the cities and just places where Pokemon Centers aren't really available. Anyway guys, moving on to number 4, I've gone for After Story. Now let's be honest, the After Story in X and Y was disappointing. There was next to nothing to do after beating the Elite Four. Now Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire's After Story was a bit better. We had the Delta Story with Zinnia in it. There's an excuse to put her on a thumbnail. And yeah, it extended the game by a few hours, but it wasn't really too much. Now it would be nice for once if a main Pokemon game had a part 2 to the story. So for example, there was a final attempt from the enemy team to complete their mission instead of just giving up like they always do. Or maybe there is more to the plot than meets the eye. So if you've ever played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, Darkness or Sky, you'll know that once you think you've beaten the final boss, a whole new story starts and it delves deeper into the plot than you could ever imagine. So I'm hoping a main Pokemon game does something like that for once. Also, if you've never played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, Darkness and Sky, I advise you pick that game up immediately. It's one of the best Pokemon games ever made. I'm not even joking. A lot of people would agree with me. But anyway, that's just my opinion, guys. Moving on to number 3, I've gone for different story structure. Now it's been 20 years and still we've got the same story structure, which is fine because I still enjoy it, but we just, we go through the motions really. We pick a grass, fire or water starter, beat all the gym leaders, beat the enemy team, beat the Elite Four, done. Now personally, if the next Pokemon game follows the same structure, I won't be too disappointed because it is still fun. But I would like to see Game Freak for once take a risk and shake up the story. Whether that's different starter types or maybe starting off in the enemy team, that would be a really fresh idea and a really cool concept I think, instead of just, oh, we've moved into a boring town, you get your Pokemon, you go on your adventure. It's still fun, but like I said, I think Game Freak really need to change the story style for once. So that's just my opinion on the Pokemon stories. You guys might think differently. Definitely let me know in the comments below, as I've mentioned. It'd be really interesting to see what you think about that one. Anyway, moving on to number 2, and I think this is something everyone can agree with. this is greater trainer customization, including age. Now, the trainer customization aspect in X and Y was fantastic. For once, it made me feel like I was the trainer, since you could be quite unique with your look. However, there is still one problem with the current Pokemon training templates: their age. Now, a lot of people who play Pokemon will be new, young kids, as that is one of the game's demographics, and that's fine, because obviously they want fresh players to come into the game. However, at least half of the fan base, if not more, are veteran Pokemon players, so I believe that players should be able to customize their trainers before they begin the game, excluding fashion really. Obviously you can choose from a few clothes, but I think that should be, like X and Y, something you sort out later in the game. So this would include age, height, hairstyle, stuff like that. And a lot of games are including in-depth customization from the start, so why can't Pokemon really? Also, the game needs more clothing choices in my opinion, could be updated with free DLC perhaps, because I thought the clothing options were fantastic in Pokemon X and Y, but it didn't take too long until you bought every single one of them. And also the ability to not wear a hat if you want to would be a nice option as well. But anyway, let's move on to number one, the one you've all been waiting for, and I've chosen difficulty settings. Now, the main problem with Pokemon is the difficulty. Now, the game has to be fair to newcomers, I accept that, and that's fair enough, because obviously you don't want to scare new players away from the game. However, there is no point in making it so easy that it becomes frustrating and boring to play. I actually beat Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire in 6 hours, one playthrough to the Elite Four, and beating them 6 hours. I was absolutely bored out of my mind. Now, to combat this problem, there needs to be a difficulty setting, and in my opinion the best way to include one is to add a slider in the options. Now, if you don't know what I mean by a slider, it's kind of like a difficulty bar which you can set yourself. So for example, if you've ever played an Elder Scrolls game, you can adjust the difficulty of the world in seconds. So for example, if you scroll it all the way to the far left, all the opposing enemies will be weaker and you'll take less damage. So in terms of Pokemon, opposing Pokemon would faint quickly and your Pokemon wouldn't take too much damage. However, if you put it all the way to the right, opposing Pokemon are harder to defeat and you take more damage from attacks. So one, Pokemon players who are new to the game can enjoy it and breeze through it easily, and those who want a challenge can put the difficulty all the way to the right, and it just kind of suits both parties as well. Now, I know people have been talking about the option choose from the start whether you want to go easy or hard, like, you know, whether you're a veteran player or you're a newcomer, but I think you should be able to change it when you want, and I think that's what the Elder Scrolls games do really well. So personally, I think that's the best way to combat the difficulty setting problems in Pokemon games. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with any of those top 10 I put in the list? And as I've said already, question of the day: what new features do you want to see in Pokemon Sun and Moon? Now, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, where the hell is multiple save files? That is definitely one option, but I don't know, I just don't think online settings would work with having multiple save files. That's the only reason I didn't include it. But anyway guys, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like, we really appreciate it. And also, if you're new to the Twintendo Nation, definitely subscribe to stay up to date with all things Pokemon Sun and Moon and Pokemon Go. Also guys, if you haven't seen my previous video, which is a new Pokemon Go video featuring Team Atlas Go, definitely check it out. But anyway guys, I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!